So all week long, Marvel has been teasing us with some rather interesting designs from Humberto Ramos of different Marvel characters merged together. We've seen Captain America and Doctor Strange merge together, Ghost Rider and Black Panther merge together, Moon Knight and Spider-Man merge together, Iron Man and Thor merge together, and Laura Kinney and the Scarlet Witch merge together, which I actually have to admit, I actually really kind of dig her character name, Weapon Hex. I don't know why I enjoy that one so much, but I do. But anyway, a lot of us were looking at these and going, okay, well that looks interesting, but what could all this be leading up towards? Could it be some giant new event? And you guys know me, I'm starting to get sick of all the Marvel events, but you know what? This one looks fun. It doesn't look like it's going to be anything huge and massive that's going to change the Marvel Universe forever or force us to take a good hard look at these characters and think who really is the hero. It looks like it's just going to be goofy fun, and I enjoy goofy fun in comics. At least that's what I was hoping it was going to be, but then they came out here and revealed it was actually all part of the new Infinity Wars event that is coming up, which I gotta be honest with you, I actually had a weird feeling like that's what it was going to be about, because I saw this and I went, alright, they're taking two Marvel characters and creating one. It's almost like they're getting rid of half the universe. What if this is all tying into Infinity Wars, and because in the Infinity War movie, Thanos kept saying, I'm going to eliminate half the universe. Half the universe must go away. I will get rid of half the universe. What if they're bringing that idea back, but they can't kill everyone off? They already did that in the first Infinity Gauntlet storyline. So now for the new Infinity Wars, they have to come up with a new way to get rid of half the universe. So they just merge two people into one. Yeah. You know what? Whatever. It's fine. It's okay. It's cool. I'm going to hold on to this idea though of merging Marvel characters together. Actually sounds like it could be fun. It sounds goofy, weird, poppy comic book stuff, which hey, I enjoy that stuff in my comics. But it did get me thinking, and that brings me to our video today. Does anybody remember the Amalgam comics? Yeah, a lot of my younger viewers might have no idea what I'm talking about when I bring up Amalgam comics, so get ready to have your mind blown by one of the weirdest periods in comic book history. Back in the mid-90s, Marvel and DC did a crossover event that ended with both of their realities being merged together and creating the Amalgam universe. A brand new world full of comic book characters that were combinations of Marvel characters and DC characters coming together to create something new. It was something that was that perfect blend between awesome and stupid. Like, you read this and you went, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't think I would ever see something like this. Holy cow, there's a combination between Wolverine and Batman running around? That's the most awesome thing I've ever seen. But at the same time, why on earth is Wolverine merged with Batman? There were some combinations in there that were actually really good. Like Super Soldier, a combination between Captain America and Superman. That makes perfect sense. Both of them stand for truth, justice, and the American way. Both of them are the Sentinels of Liberty in their respective universes. But then there are other ones in there like Superboy and Spider-Man merged together. They share nothing in common other than the fact that they have a history with clones. That is it. But that's all they needed to merge those guys together. And again, for people like me who grew up during that time period, it was such a crazy thing that even when I can look back at and point at the stuff that was really dumb in it, I still kind of hope and dream that one day it could come back. It's not gonna happen because Marvel apparently pissed off the rest of the comic book industry somehow. Yeah, DC still does crossovers with IDW, Boom Comics, Dynamite Comics. They do crossovers with everyone. Marvel doesn't do crossovers with anyone. Marvel picked up their ball and went home. And I'm not going to get into weird conspiracy stuff, but something had to have happened. But that's a whole rant for another day, by which I mean I will never ever discuss this topic ever again. My point is, when I was looking at these mashups that Marvel was doing with their own characters, it made me nostalgic for Amalgam comics. And it made me think, what would happen if we brought Amalgam back? And didn't just bring it back, what would happen if we completely redid it? Because like I said, there were some combinations in there that worked. And I'd like to keep them around. But there are other combinations in there that were just really stupid. And we should totally retry that. We should totally take a mulligan on some of these characters. So today, I decided, you know what? We have not done something just stupid and goofy and just completely geeky indulgent in a long time on Comic Class. So today, I am just going to pitch to you what I would do if I somehow got the keys to the Amalgam Kingdom. If DC and Marvel said, you know what, we're gonna try this again, and let's hand this random crappy YouTuber the keys to be able to go and just decide every Amalgam character we're going to come up with, who are some of the ones that I would pitch? Who are some of the brand new Amalgam characters that I would create if I got to start completely from the ground up? Again, this is just a really stupid, fun idea. It's just something I'm doing just kind of to relive all that crazy nostalgia. But I hope that you guys enjoy it, and after you're done watching the video, let me know in the comments down below or on Twitter and Tumblr and Twitch what Amalgam characters you would like to create. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Alright, now these first couple of Amalgams are sort of the no-duh contenders. Don't get me wrong, I've got some Amalgams that I want to go into a ton of detail about. There's some that I want to really flesh them out. There's some that I've thought of big, epic backstories to them. And there's some other ones, there's some really weird combinations, but to me, they make perfect sense. So I fully understand it's going to take a lot of explaining to be able to sell you guys on them. But there are some other Amalgams that I would put together that are just so obvious, they don't really need any extra explaining behind them. I don't have to come in here and give you a big pitch behind them because we've all pretty much thought of it already. For example, Amanda Waller and Nick Fury. That's an obvious one. The big super spy and the big secret government lady, both of them have plans that they keep to themselves, assemble teams to do whatever they want them to do, and are always trying to be the smartest person in the room. Wham, bam, easy, done. Just have basically Amanda Waller, but give her an eye patch. Done. The Green Lantern Corps and the Nova Corps. Heck, most people will already go ahead and tell you the Nova Corps was a flat-out ripoff of the Green Lantern Corps, but whether that is true or not, it's probably true. They're both each of their universe's respective space cops. Both of them have one item of clothing. For the Lanterns, it's a ring. For the Novas, it's a helmet that when they put it on, they gain these amazing powers. And honestly, I can see Richard Rider and Hal Jordan being a good merger, and I can see Sam Alexander and Kyle Rayner being a good matchup. Now, as for the other Green Lanterns, well, yeah, there aren't that many Novas over at Marvel, so you would have to start merging other different space heroes in there, but that's an argument for another day. The point is, the Nova Corps and the Green Lantern Corps, yeah, you need to mix those two things together. Another super obvious one, the Punisher and Vigilante. The Punisher was a soldier whose family was murdered by mobsters, so he decided to wage a one-man war on crime. And the Vigilante was a district attorney whose family was murdered by mobsters, so he decided to wage a one-man war on crime. Yeah, their origins are almost exactly the same. Just make this new merger a soldier who, when he returned home, became a district attorney, and then from there on out, both their origin stories are exactly the same. You don't need to do any extra work on this one. The Demon and Ghost Rider. Hey kids, you remember how I was talking about how they just had some really weird combinations in the old Amalgam universe that just made no sense at all? Yeah, they merged Ghost Rider with the Flash. And near as I can tell, they did it just so that they could call him Speed Demon. Yeah, man, that made zero sense to me. Especially when you have Etrigan just sitting right over there. Just give this guy the exact same origin story as Etrigan, where he was a knight working under King Arthur. He got cursed to have this demon inside of him, and then he became immortal. But because he's immortal, then when it gets into the 70s, you could have it turn into Johnny Blaze's story, where he was a stuntman. And from there on out, yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's a guy who is possessed by a demon. You don't really need any extra work on this one. The Winter Soldier and Red Hood. Oh my gosh, this is such an obvious one. Both of them were the sidekicks to big superheroes in their respective universes. Then it looked like they died, only for it to be revealed that they didn't actually die. They actually wound up in the hands of that hero's villain, and they kind of got brainwashed into being villains, or at least major anti-heroes who went around there just fighting people with guns. Yeah, this could not be a more obvious matchup. In fact, it's almost the most obvious choice on this list. The only one more obvious than that would be Man-Thing and Swamp Thing. How did they not do this when they originally did the Amalgam universe? You know who they did mix Man-Thing with? Man-Bat. To make Bat-Thing. Alright, it's a scientist who turns himself into a monster, but aside from that, I don't really see what they have in common. Whereas with Man-Thing and Swamp Thing, both of them have almost the exact same origin story in the comics. Both of them reside in the swamp. Both of them protect something big and mystical, with Swamp Thing protecting the green and Man Thing protecting the gateway between all dimensions. It just seems too obvious to not do this, but it also feels kind of appropriate because, fun fact, the guy who created Man Thing was actually roommates with the guy who created Swamp Thing when both of them came up with this idea at almost the exact same time. Yeah, come up with your own backstory there, but my point is, doesn't it just feel like this is the most obvious amalgam that you could possibly do? Alright, now I'm going to start getting into some that are a little bit less obvious, although this next one to me still kind of makes perfect sense. Gamora and Big Barda. Big Barda grew up on Apocalypse being ruled over by Darkseid. Gamora grew up living under Thanos as his adopted daughter. Both of them have grown up to be considered the deadliest woman in their respective galaxies. Considering that Thanos and Darkseid are already merged in the Amalgam universe, it feels only appropriate to merge the two greatest warriors that they both raised. You could just call her Big Gamora, have her look exactly like Big Barda, except she's green with those big yellow circles around her eyes. Have her carry that big club that Barda does, but it can transform into the sword that Gamora always carries with her. I could also see you even merging a lot of their supporting characters together. For example, I know this is gonna sound like a weird one, but I actually think that Star-Lord and Mr. Miracle are a good matchup with each other. Have it be this origin story where this kid, Peter Free, was growing up on Earth back in the 80s, then he got kidnapped and taken to Apocalypse, where he was tortured his entire life, but he learned how to be the world's greatest escape artist, and then eventually he escaped alongside of Big Gamora, and now the two of them are just lovable rogues flying around in their ship with the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy, or whatever the Amalgam Universe version of the Guardians of the Galaxy would be. You could even merge their fathers together with each other. Remember that Mr. Miracle got sent over to Apocalypse because he was the son of Highfather. Peter Quill discovered that the reason why he went into space in the first place was because he was the son of this big space emperor Jason. Just have it be revealed that the reason why this Amalgam character got kidnapped to Apocalypse in the first place is because he was the son of another big space emperor out there. And as for the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the Amalgam universe, this is gonna be another weird one, but it actually makes perfect sense to me. Rocket Raccoon and Lobo. Merge those two guys together. Both of them are badasses who carry around giant guns and have their own made-up swear words, love murdering things, and they both have companions who are not known for their conversation skills. Next up, moving away from the Guardians of the Galaxy but staying in space for the time being, I would merge Martian Manhunter and the Vision. Both of them are characters who have been kind of steady rocks on their respective superhero teams, with Martian Manhunter on the Justice League and Vision on the Avengers, but all of them are also characters who possess a lot of heart. They're there to support the other characters on their team, but they can come off as a little bit cold just simply because, Vision's a robot and Martian Manhunter is a Martian. You could have his origin story be that a supervillain, let's say a combination between Ultron and Amazo, discovered that there was an ancient race that used to live on Mars, so he built an android that was capable of storing all the data from this ancient race. He was going to try and weaponize all that data, but this android ended up rebelling back against his creator, and he ended up becoming a hero, and now he's moved into the suburbs, and he's decided to build his own family using the same technology that they found on Mars, and he has created a daughter for himself who is a combination between Miss Martian and Viv Vision. Alright, at this point, I know some of you are starting to doubt me, some of you are starting to disagree with me on these, but I know some of you are still sticking with me, but you ain't seen nothing yet, because the next three that I'm going to throw at you, these are the ones I know I really have to sell, because these are ones that everyone is going to look at me like, what on earth are you talking about? Hold on, I have a plan. First one is the Hulk and OMAC. Yeah, the Hulk is a hard one to merge with anyone else because he's so unique. There is really no character on the DC side that is quite like the Hulk. However, when the New 52 came around and they completely reinvented OMAC, I did start to see some Hulk tendencies in there. He was this human being who now knew that he transformed into this monstrous, big, super strong creature that did also refer to itself in the third person. However, he had no control of it, and he was on the run. He was trying to escape the people who were after him. That actually sounds kind of Hulk-like to me. I actually think that you can merge these two together and have it be that Bruce Banner, or whatever combination of names you want to come up with, Bruce Banner was working on this big super science project, but it wasn't a gamma bomb. Instead, it was a high-tech machine, Brother Eye, and he was trying to power this with gamma radiation, but that caused the machine to explode. He got caught up in the explosion, and he seemed fine, but it turns out that Brother Eye ended up infesting him. And now whenever he gets angry, his mental defenses are dropped, and Brother Eye is allowed to come out. That's when he turns into the cybernetic rage monster, Homak. Okay, there is no good combination of these names, but my point is, the origin stories now actually fit. The purpose behind these characters, ever since the New 52, actually really work with each other. So yeah, I honestly think Homak and Hulk are kind of a perfect fit. In fact, it's probably the only perfect fit you could come up with from DC Comics. Next up, I wanted to combine Constantine with someone, and I was thinking Blade because both of them hunt down monsters and they're both British. But that's about as far as I went with that one. Yeah, when it comes to their personalities and the way that they do business, Blade and Constantine are very different from each other. However, I think there actually is still a really good matchup over on the Marvel side. Moon Knight. Again, I know it's not obvious, but just hang with me here. Moon Knight is a character who has always worked in the shadows. He has kind of always stuck to the back alleys, kind of like Constantine has. He has always been a mysterious figure who has gone up against supernatural beings. I mean, the very first monster he ever went up against was a werewolf, and he didn't stop there. He's gone up against ghosts, he's gone up against demons. He does have experience having to fight darker creatures from the realm of magic, just like Constantine does. However, ever since Moon Knight got his redesign under Warren Ellis, he's gone from being a Cape Crusader who hangs out on rooftops to being a guy in a stylish suit who just walks around and just uses his wits to be able to solve these cases. A lot like John Constantine. Plus, both these characters are guys who have been haunted by the demons of their past. John Constantine constantly sees the ghost of people who he couldn't save popping up to mock him, or demons who he has made deals with constantly popping up there to remind him of what he owes. Moon Knight got his powers from Khonshu, an Egyptian god who watches over those who travel at night, and now he constantly hears Khonshu in his head. You could merge these concepts very well. Have it be that this Amalgam character now constantly sees Khonshu, who is his guide to the spirit world and allows him to see all the dark creatures that he has to do battle with, but it also causes him to see the ghost of all the people who he has betrayed or backstabbed or couldn't save in the past, always popping up to remind him of who he truly is. You could even go further with this merger, because while in the Marvel Universe Khonshu is a god that saved the life of Mark Spector, you could have it be that in the Amalgam Universe Khonshu is a demon that Mark Constantine had to make a deal with, and that's why he's constantly being haunted by him. And while Constantine and Moon Knight don't really have a huge roster of supporting characters, you could merge what little they do have pretty well. You could merge Frenchie, Moon Knight's pilot, with Chaz, Constantine's faithful cab driver. Another one that makes total sense to me, but I know I'm gonna have to pitch to someone, you gotta combine Harley Quinn with someone. Ever since the old Amalgam comic, she has now blown up. She wasn't even a thing when the original Amalgam comics came around, except in the cartoons. So now if you redid the Amalgam comics, you would have to merge Harley Quinn with someone, and honestly, to me, the best candidate for that, I know a lot of people aren't gonna want to hear me say it, but Gwenpool. Yeah, if you read the Gwenpool comics, it's very clear they're trying to go for the same tone as the Harley Quinn comics, which are also trying to go for the same tone as the Deadpool comics, so in a weird way, it all comes back around. It's all just one big circle, which, hey man, that's comics, I'm fine with that. But my point is, I actually think Gwenpool and Harley Quinn would be a great mix-up, because the origin story of Gwenpool is that she's someone from the real world who loved comic books, but then she got sucked into the Marvel comic universe, and she went around being a criminal, but then she discovered, oh wait, I'm actually kind of hurting people, and this isn't as fun as I thought would be when I was just reading the comics. I'm actually kind of being a bad person, and I don't want to be a bad person. You know what, I'm going to actually try and be a good guy now. Harley Quinn's origin story is that she thought it would be fun to pair up with the Joker, they got romantically involved, but then she learned that, oh wait, the Joker, actually, I don't know if it's fun doing bad things, and the Joker is kind of a jerk, and he's abusive, and he's kind of a monster. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I think those origin stories actually match up pretty well. Have it be that Harley Quinn, oh my god, that name works too well. I'm actually ashamed of myself for thinking of that. Harley Quinn is this girl who grew up in the real world, and she loved reading these Amalgam comics, especially about this one character who would be our universe's version of the Joker, and then one day she got sucked into these comics, and she formed a romantic relationship with this version of the Joker in the Amalgam universe, but then she started to realize, wait, I'm actually doing bad things, and I mean, I thought that would be cool at first, but now that I'm seeing these people suffer, and I'm seeing how evil this guy is, you know what, it's one thing to read it in a comic, but when I'm doing it actually here in the real world, yeah, it's not that fun anymore. And also, the Joker is kind of an abusive monster, and he's not as funny as he was when I was just reading him in a comic. I'm not gonna do this anymore. And she ends up splitting off from him and ends up becoming her own weird anti-hero. Yeah, man, again, the way that their stories match up, it works too darn well. Okay, now that I've mentioned Gwenpool, I know that a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, what about Deadpool himself? Obviously, you're going to pair him with Deathstroke, because Deadpool was originally created to be a ripoff of Deathstroke. Yeah, here's the thing. I've looked at a lot of other characters that people would make in this Amalgam universe, and many people have said combine Deathstroke and Deadpool because Deadpool was meant to be a ripoff of Deathstroke. Honestly, that's kind of why I don't want to do it. It feels way too obvious to me. Don't get me wrong, there are some obvious choices like you saw at the beginning of this video who are so obvious you kind of have to do it, but when it comes to Deadpool and Deathstroke, I kind of do have a problem with doing that. Because even though Deadpool was a ripoff of Deathstroke, he's still nothing like Deathstroke. I mean, yes, they're both mercenaries. Aside from that, Deathstroke is this grizzled, angry badass. Deadpool is a jokey cartoon character. It would feel too bizarre for me to mix them. They don't match up well enough to me. If I had to combine Deathstroke with anyone, I'd go with Taskmaster. Taskmaster, yeah, he can be occasionally jokey depending on who's writing him, but for the most part, he's just all about the money. He will do whatever job you give him if you just pay him enough. That kind of matches up with Deathstroke, especially considering that now these days, Deathstroke has become so popular, they've tried to kind of turn him into an anti-hero, where a lot of times he is actually on the side of the good guys. Yeah, man, Taskmaster, that would work with as well, because he too has worked alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. He has worked alongside other heroes out there when they decide to pay him enough. You could basically keep his origin story exactly the same for Deathstroke, where he was this soldier who underwent this super soldier program, and the end result was that he got Taskmaster's powers, where now he can reproduce any move that he sees someone else do. While we're talking about the villains, one of the greatest injustices of the Amalgam universe was that they merged Dr. Doom and Doomsday. Yeah, it's good, weird, quirky fun, but it's so freaking bizarre. There is nothing in common between Doomsday and Dr. Doom other than one syllable of their names. So if I had to merge Dr. Doom with anyone, it'd have to be Vandal Savage. To me, Vandal Savage is the closest thing that the DC Universe has to a Dr. Doom. He is a guy who has long-running plans. He is a man who has lived long enough that he's mastered pretty much every single thing that a man could master. Have it be that in this universe, Dr. Savage or Vandal Doom, whichever name you want to go with. Honestly, both of them just work way too well with each other. Have it be that this character is a guy that, yes, he gained immortality back in the days of the cavemen, just like Vandal Savage, but he spent all that time building up his empire. He created the nation of Latveria, and he's ended up ruling over that nation for centuries now. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense to me that an immortal supervillain would by this point actually own his own nation. He's had plans going for that long that he's actually succeeded to that point. Okay, I've got a few more small fun ideas before I get into the ones that I think are the really hard pitches. Even harder than Homak. Omok. There's gotta be one that actually works in there. I actually think that Luke Cage and Black Lightning would actually be a great mashup. Both of them were created back in the 70s to take advantage of the blaxploitation craze that was going on in the movies. Both of them were street-level heroes who over time ended up growing up into teachers of sorts and leading their own teams, with Luke Cage leading the New Avengers and Black Lightning leading the Outsiders. I honestly think that when you look at what these characters were created to be, what they have done over their histories, yeah, the two of them work pretty darn well with each other. My only problem is, if you're going to have Luke Cage merged with someone, you have to also have Iron Fist merged with someone. You have to have the heroes for hire exist in some way, shape, or form in the Amalgam universe, and it's really kind of hard for me to pick who I would merge with Iron Fist. I actually asked you guys on Twitter who you think Iron Fist should be merged with, because he's the one who I just could not come up with anything, and a lot of you said Richard Dragon, which, that works. Just like how Black Lightning and Luke Cage were created to take advantage of the blaxploitation craze in films at the time, Iron Fist and Richard Dragon were both created to take advantage of the kung fu craze going on in films at the time. But for some weird reason, I actually think Katana would be a good mashup with Iron Fist. Just like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Black Lightning and Katana have a long history of working alongside each other, and when you look at their powers and origins, there is an easy way to merge the two together. Katana possesses a sword that steals the souls of anyone it cuts, and Iron Fist gained his powers by punching a dragon in the chest, turning his fist into living weapons. So, let's say that this Amalgam character killed the dragon with its sword, sucked its soul inside, and now the sword possesses the power of the Iron Fist. Now, one thing that I criticized the old Amalgam comics for was that they merged a lot of characters together just simply because their names worked with each other, but I'm about to be guilty of that as well. Because I'm going to merge Captain Marvel and Shazam. Why? Because for decades before we all gave up and just decided to finally start calling Shazam Shazam, his name was Captain Marvel. So yeah, I know it's kind of weak to merge these two together simply because of their names, but I do kind of feel like with this one, you have no other choice. You gotta merge Captain Marvel with Captain Marvel. And I know you might be saying, well, didn't you say that these were going to be new Amalgam characters? In the old Amalgam universe, they did have a Captain Marvel who was a merger of the two Captain Marvels. Yes, but that was a merger of Billy Batson, Captain Marvel in the DC universe, and Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel in the Marvel comics. But my version of Captain Marvel in the Amalgam comics would be a completely new character because it would be a combination of Carol Danvers and Billy Batson. But don't worry, fans of the original Mar-Vell, we would actually see all these other characters popping up as parts of the extended Marvel family. Remember, both Captain Marvel in the Marvel Universe and Captain Marvel in the DC Universe have pretty large supporting cast members, have a large group of characters who have also carried that name with them before. You could have the Wizard Shazam, who gave the DC Captain Marvel his powers originally, merge with the Supreme Intelligence, who was the head of the Kree Empire, which the original Marvel Captain Marvel was a member of. And remember, Billy Batson was not the first DC character to receive the powers of Shazam. That was Black Adam. And Carol Danvers was not the first hero to be Captain Marvel in the Marvel Universe. That was Mar-Vell. So, you can merge Black Adam with Mar-Vell, because Black Adam ended up rebelling against the Wizard Shazam, and Captain Mar-Vell ended up rebelling against the Kree Empire and the Supreme Intelligence. However, Black Adam is sometimes a villain, sometimes an anti-hero. This new combination would be a pure anti-hero. They would still be someone who helped teach this combination of Carol Danvers and Billy Batson, but at the same time, they occasionally do things that go somewhat against Earth laws. They are constantly reminding Carol Batson, hey kid, look out for yourself, because that wizard, they're up to no good. I don't care what they say, don't fully trust them. And from there, you could extend this into some really obvious other combinations in the Marvel family. You could actually take the son of Mar-Vell, Genis, over at Marvel Comics and merge him with Captain Marvel Jr. over on the DC side. Then, the most obvious one of all, team Kamala Khan up with Mary Marvel. That one is way too obvious to not work. Alright, now I've only got 5 more on this list, and each of these characters are huge names in their respective universes. These are some of the big guns that I've been holding out until the end. However, some of these are really bizarre combinations. I know they're not going to make any sense at first, but just hold on, hear me out, I promise I have a plan. The first one is Green Arrow. And I know you hear Green Arrow and you think, well, obviously you're going to mix them with Hawkeye. They're the greatest archers in their respective universes. Why would you not mix these two together? Because, as I said, I didn't want to just mix characters because their powers were similar. I wanted to look at their backstories. I wanted to look at their attitudes. I wanted to look at their supporting characters. I wanted to look at their mission statements. And honestly, when you do that with Green Arrow and Hawkeye, they don't really match up all that well. In fact, in all honesty, listen, I am a huge fan of Hawkeye. He was one of my favorite members of the Avengers when I was growing up, but for decades, his supporting cast was other members of the Avengers. In fact, after all the years that Hawkeye has been around, his supporting cast is mostly made up of Kate Bishop, Mockingbird, and all of his friends from the Avengers. Whereas with Green Arrow, he's got his own Arrow family over there. Also, where does Hawkeye live? He lives in Brooklyn. When they want him to. Then he lives in other places. And he just kind of moves around. I mean, heck, for several parts of his career, he has literally just been on the road, just solving crimes wherever he decided to go. He never really had a home. Green Arrow, on the other hand, he has a specific location that he has sworn to protect. And it's because of that, and several other reasons, that I'm actually going to mash up Green Arrow and Daredevil. I almost merged Daredevil with Batman because, wow, do their rogues galleries really pair up almost one for one in many instances. But when I get right down to it, I think Daredevil and Green Arrow have the most in common. I mean, picture this as the origin story of Green Devil. His dad was a wealthy boxer who was very successful, but then one day he decided not to throw a match when the mob wanted him to, so he and his son ended up getting invited to this cruise. The cruise ship was actually rigged to explode. It did, and it ended up killing everyone on board, including his father, but Matt somehow survived. However, he was left blind. He ended up washing ashore on this island where he had to learn how to use all of his other senses. After living there for years, he was now actually able to use it almost like sonar. He could actually tell what was happening around him at all times. And thanks to a mysterious old man who lived on the island named Styx, he was able to learn how to not only focus his hearing, but actually was able to master bows and arrows. When he returned back home, he used what was left of his father's fortune to send himself to law school and open up his own law firm. And he came to discover that his old neighborhood has now been overrun with crime, including the criminals who helped to kill his father and blind him as a child. He now uses this expert marksmanship to fight back against these criminals and keep his city and neighborhood safe. Again, when you look at how their origins could merge together, I just think it fits way too well. Not to mention, when you look at all the supporting characters that Daredevil has and all the supporting characters that Green Arrow have, again, they actually match up pretty darn well. You could take characters like Elektra and Black Canary and merge them together. Characters like Emiko and Echo and merge them. Heck, if you really want to use Hawkeye somewhere, I actually think that he and Arsenal are a much better matchup than him and Green Arrow, so yeah, you can merge those two characters together. Then you can merge characters like Mockingbird and Cheshire together. Again, I know it feels so weird to not mix Green Arrow with Hawkeye, but again, to me, Daredevil just makes so much more sense with him. Next up, this is another one that's going to take some explaining, but just hang in there, just stick with me, I promise you it will make sense. I have to mix Black Panther with someone, because ever since the old Amalgam comics, Black Panther has exploded in popularity. In the old Amalgam comics, he just got one really brief cameo. Sorry for the crappy quality on this picture, but that's literally the best image that I could get of him. But they ended up merging him with Bronze Tiger, which doesn't go together at all other than the fact that they have cats and a color in their name. For my new relaunched Amalgam universe, I would actually merge Black Panther with Hawkman. I know it makes zero sense at first, but just hold on, I've got a story for this. Imagine if in this Amalgam universe, there was this country called Wakanda centuries ago, and this giant space rock crashed down. They called this rock vibranium. However, as scientists around the world started to discover it, they couldn't quite put a name to it, so they started to refer to it as the nth metal. This strange metal possessed incredible properties, but along with this giant meteor came two visitors from space, two people with giant wings who decided to teach the people of Wakanda how to use this vibranium. Using this vibranium, the people of Wakanda became the most technologically advanced nation on Earth. However, the Guardians who arrived with this vibranium eventually died, but their souls were reincarnated, not into other people, but into a heart-shaped herb. And if the king or queen of Wakanda ate this herb, they would gain the powers of these guardians, including the ability to fly, but also enhanced reflexes, sight, strength. It was almost like they had gained the abilities of a hawk mixed with the abilities of a panther, making them the Panther Hawks. Yes, I know that's a dumb name, but all the Amalgam characters had dumb names. This power would be passed from one generation on to the next, because whenever the king or queen would die, their soul would then be reincarnated again as a heart-shaped herb. Then whenever the next member of the royal family would eat this herb, they would not only gain these powers, but also the ability to communicate with the spirits of the previous kings and queens, going all the way back to those original visitors from space. So there, you get to combine the vibranium with the nth metal that the Hawkmen use, you get to combine the heart-shaped herb that gets passed down from generation to generation with the reincarnating abilities of Hawkman. Heck, you can even combine Wakanda with ancient Egypt because that's where the Hawkmen originally arrived in DC Comics. Again, I know it is a weird merger, but I think there's so many things from their origin stories that actually line up incredibly well. However, to me, that isn't the weirdest combination on this list. That's coming next, because I have to merge Spider-Man with someone, and this was such a hard choice because there are so few characters over at DC that actually work as a combination with Spider-Man. I almost did this with Blue Beetle, because both of them are kind of jokey guys themed around insects or arachnids, so okay, I could see them working. But Blue Beetle has such a small supporting cast. He has such a small rogues gallery. I have no idea where I would put the vast majority of all of Spider-Man's supporting characters if I merged him with Blue Beetle. However, I actually think that Spider-Man works incredibly well merged with the Flash. Yes, power-wise, it makes zero sense. Power-wise, they share nothing in common at all, except for one thing. The source behind their powers. And that was the thing that originally inspired me to consider this a possibility. Because remember, the Flash gets his powers from the Speed Force. That's the thing that grants all speedsters their supernatural speed and allows them to surpass all the laws of physics with how fast they can run. But it also connects them to the multiverse. The Speed Force is basically what holds together all the alternate realities in the DC universe. Spider-Man, on the other hand, for years we thought that he got his powers from a radioactive spider bite. However, then they came in here and redefined it. They came in here and said, no, you actually are a totem. You actually have mystical powers. You are actually connected to the Great Web. And it's not just you. Anyone with these spider powers are also connected to the Great Web. But then Dan Slott came in here years later and said, the Great Web doesn't just connect spider people in your universe, it connects all the spider people across all alternate realities. In fact, it's actually kind of the thing that holds all alternate realities together, this giant Great Web. That's where we see the connection. You merge the Speed Force with the Great Web, make it the Web Force, and now you have the thing that powers our Spider Flash. Actually, you know what? I'm not coming up with a better name. That's what we're going with, Spider Flash. You could also merge their origin stories together pretty well. You could have it be that Barry Parker saw his parents being killed when he was a kid by some mysterious force they couldn't quite figure out, so he was sent to live with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Then, years later, when he was at a science experiment that was studying spiders, the whole event was struck by lightning, and he ended up getting joined with this Great Web Force. At first, he didn't use his powers responsibly, and he completely ignored this kid that was about to pull this crime, and then later that night, his Uncle Ben was killed by the exact same strange force that killed his parents when he was a kid. He decided to dedicate himself to crime fighting after that, and years later he ended up discovering as he traveled into the future that the person that killed his Uncle Ben and his parents was actually the descendant of that kid that the night he got his powers, he decided not to stop from committing a crime when he easily could have. It sent that kid down a bad road. He ended up having a kid who went down a bad road as well. His grandson went down a bad road. Many generations of crime later, it ended up creating this supervillain who went back in time and ended up trying to just torture Barry Parker for the rest of his life. You could have this villain be a combination of Eobard Thawne and Venom, someone who was studying the unique energy signature of Spider Flash and invented a symbiote suit that was capable of tapping into the Web Force, but over time it drove him insane and made him obsessed with Spider Flash. In fact, there are many Flash villains and Spidey villains who match up. I mean, both of them are known for having more quote-unquote blue-collar villains who just hang out in bars or in their secret lairs with each other before they go and rob banks, and both of them have huge families that draw from the same energies. You could merge Miles Morales and Wally West, Silk and Impulse, Ezekiel and Max Mercury, Jessica Drew and Jesse Quick. Even their jobs are similar enough to work together. They're both scientists after all, and you could have Barry now working at this newspaper, but rather than just snapping pictures of Spider Flash, he works the crime beat, taking photos of crime scenes that he then uses to put the clues together to solve cases. Again, power-wise, it's a weird mashup, but to me, this works on every other level. Now, I've only got two other characters, and I'm going to kind of put them together because the reason I save them for the end is because they kind of fill in a missing part of the Amalgam universe. The first character is Wonder Woman and Thor. Don't get me wrong, I actually really liked the original combination of Wonder Woman and Storm to create this character known as Amazon. I actually think that was a wonderful matchup, but again, for what I'm going with here, I kind of want to stick to having these two characters together, and I'll explain why in just a second. But for now, I actually really like this idea that Wonder Woman was this girl who grew up on Themyscira. Her mother prayed to Zeus for a daughter, but then Zeus said no, so she then turned to the Norse gods. She turned to Odin, and Odin was more than happy to not only give her a daughter, but also a hammer that one day when she was worthy enough, she would be able to lift. From there, I feel the combination is really freaking obvious. You basically just have her go up against the Norse gods, you have her go up against the Greek gods, you have her fight every single thing from the world of mythology under the sun, and as far as her rogues gallery goes, Cersei and Loki work insanely well together. That is absolutely a combination that should exist. Another really obvious mashup of their villains to me would be Dario Augur and Cheetah. Have it be that this new merger of the two characters is some greedy archaeologist who only cares about money, and they ended up getting cursed to turn into a chimera creature that's one part Minotaur, one part cheetah. And now, for the last character, who would you amalgam Batman with? I know a lot of people would say, let's just hold on to Dark Claw. Dark Claw was absolutely rad. He was awesome. Yeah, he was awesome! Because I was 14 when that book came out, and it was a combination between the two most popular characters from both universes. I mean, a combination between Batman and Wolverine? How on earth would a teenager not think that's the most awesome thing that ever existed? But again, when you stop and you just look at them, it doesn't make any sense. Why is Wolverine mixed together with Bruce Wayne? The two of them share zero in common with each other. There is no reason that those two characters should be mixed with each other. So when it comes to who to match Batman with, as I said, I really thought long and hard of mixing Batman with Daredevil. I mean, so many of their villains would match up perfectly with each other. But I gotta go with Iron Man. First off, over the years, Batman has moved away from being the street-level vigilante guy to being more of a tech guy. I mean, if you've been reading the Batman comics, he whips out a Batmech here or there whenever he feels like it. But also, just think of the character of Bruce Wayne. And I don't mean the character that we know, think about the character that the rest of the DC Universe knows. The rest of the DC Universe thinks that Bruce Wayne is some party animal, some spoiled rich kid who just goes around flirting with women at all times. That's basically Tony Stark. Just merge these guys together and have it be that Bruce Stark goes around acting like the Tony Stark that we all know, but when it's time for him to get serious, he turns into the Iron Bat and then he acts like Batman. And while Iron Man doesn't have nearly as big of a supporting family as Batman does, there's still a lot of characters that match up with each other. You could easily match Riri Williams up with Batgirl. Jarvis and Alfred is another really obvious combination, and in a weird way, I could actually see Pepper Potts and Dick Grayson merging together. Have her be an orphan who got an internship at Stark Industries, stumbled upon the Iron Bat Cave and learned his secret, then he built her own Rescue Robin style suit. Batwoman and War Machine are a pretty good pick as well, as both of them worked in the military, but after they left, they started working alongside this tech genius, only to become superheroes on their own that happened to resemble the alter ego of said tech genius. And as for their rogues gallery, like I said, Daredevil's matched up pretty perfectly, but that's not to say there aren't some really good matchups here as well. Ra's al Ghul and the Mandarin are a match made in heaven. That is one of the best mergers of any of these amalgam characters that I have pitched here today. And you could also go with Madame Mask and Catwoman. I actually think that the two of them are a pretty good pairing. And as for the Joker, I actually think he'd match up really well with Ezekiel Stane. Think of this Joker as some tech genius on the rise in Silicon Valley. Everyone is talking about how he's going to revolutionize the world, but no one knows his name. He only goes by his online identity of the Joker. But Bruce is starting to think that he might be the son of his old business partner Obadiah. But then, when it comes time for his big reveal to the world, he unleashes a Laughing Man virus that starts taking over computers and leaving just the words "ha ha" all over them. Basically, just turn all the crazy malicious tricks that the Joker has into cyber attacks, and you've got your matchup. I'll admit, the Riddler also works really well for him, but I'm gonna stick with the Joker for now. But, as I said, there was a big reason why I wanted to merge Batman with Iron Man and Wonder Woman with Thor, and it's because out of all the Amalgam characters that they originally created, the one that I think works the best is Captain America and Superman as Super Soldier. I think that was a perfect matchup, but if you look at the Justice League and you look at the Avengers, one thing they have in common is the big three. Over on the Justice League, they have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They're the Trinity. They're the rock that holds the Justice League together. But when you look over at the Avengers, you've got Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man. They are the ones who are the most well-known as being the core members of that team. So the reason why I wanted to merge Wonder Woman and Thor and Batman and Iron Man is because I'm keeping Captain America and Superman merged together, so I wanted to give us a completely merged Trinity. I wanted to merge the three big members of the Justice League with the three big members of the Avengers. But alright, that is it. This went on way longer than I wanted to, but in all honesty, it has been a long time since I did a video where I just got to geek out, where I just got to sit down here and go, guys, this is the crazy goofy stuff that I like in comics, and I've just got some ideas in my head, and I just want to spill them out all over the place. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what characters from the Amalgam universe you would love to see created. What DC and Marvel character would you love to see merge? And you can also let me know on Twitter and Twitch and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. And if you want to see more weird, goofy videos like this, typically we just review comic books. But if you want to see me actually come up with weird, crazy what-if ideas, let me know that in the comments down there as well. Again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.